Now that we have our curtain wall system, let's take a look at a storefront. So a storefront is going to be used, it's not going to span multiple levels. It might be an exterior storefront, it might be an interior. We can also use the storefronts to do doors with side lights, and also to replicate or to model a interior demountable partition. So like a dirt panel system, something that might have, interior spacing, can use that a lot to have, translucent panels or just decorative panels and kind of as a interior demountable wall. So I'm going to draw regular walls first for this storefront system. Shortcut for that WA. So my regular walls, I'm just going to use the generic 5-inch here. We're just going to draw another system here. All right, I'm going to go back to my wall commands. Now I'm going to select storefront. So we're going to do 3 different ones here. So the first one, I'm just going to build the storefront here on the exterior. And something that's different between the curtain wall versus the storefront is that you can see right here, the storefront automatically embeds itself within the other wall. So as opposed to if I switch this to a curtain wall, oh, this one actually is now set up to also do that. Well, there goes that point. That's okay. But it's going to create its own opening and its own space here around which for the wall. So that's going to come in unconnected at 20 feet. I'm going to drop that down to 8 feet. So you can see it automatically infills around, around that system. And I'm going to go back to my floor plan here. You can control the dimension and the lengths of these, just like you can other objects in Revit. Switch that to wall faces. So if I want to make sure that this is, maybe I want this to be 14 feet long. Let's just make this 14. Or 16. There we go. And then I can also adjust. If I adjust this, it's going to change that dimension, but I can move it and do that's close enough. We'll move this wall out so it's 4'9" on either side. There we go. So you can adjust the dimensions and the sizing of these items. You can see that when I went to 16, it automatically defaulted to having another grid and mullion associated with that, and that's just because of the set spacing that this one already has applied, a vertical grid and a horizontal grid and the mullions. So that's just because of that. So let's go back to my 3D here. And let's go ahead and switch out this one here and add in a door. The doors can be found in your Revit library. They're going to be in the Imperial under doors. So it's going to be these 3 here that have door curtain wall. All right, so those are the panels that you can switch out. So I'll go ahead and open one of those. And I do want to add this one as well. Whoops, that's the wrong one. And let's just, so you can just open this one too, just see what our 3 options here. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and load these into my project 1. And we'll just close that guy. There we go. All right, so if I want to switch out a panel, so let's say on this one, now that we have those doors loaded, I could switch this out so that it is a actual door. You can see that we don't see the hardware, and that's because of the detail level. Some families are set up to hide certain elements at certain detail levels within Revit. So for this, we need to come down to our bottom ribbon and make sure we select that to fine. Right, that doesn't happen a lot, but with the typical families, but for the storefront, the doors, it does. Now, over here, if I wanted to make these one big door here in the center, even though there's set grids here, I can actually still modify those. I'm just gonna hover tab through that be able to grab the grid. I need to make sure I unpin it, and that's not gonna let me do it because it's a set in the system. So we're gonna have to do a new completely new type, duplicate, and I'm actually gonna get rid of these grids, and we're just gonna do them custom. Okay, so now we just have a clean storefront system here. Go to my architecture tab and add in grids. Just realize that's pretty big door, so I'm gonna move that one over. There we go. 6-0 door is pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna switch out my panel. So I need to make sure all these items for the curtain walls, they come in pinned. So you can unpin them individually, or I tend to like to do a crossing box and then filter out those items. Actually, I think you can just say UP no matter what. Yep, and just hit UP and that'll unpin everything. It makes it easier to start working in there. So let me go ahead and select that panel and I'll switch it out to a storefront door, just like that. I do want to make sure I get rid of this mullion. That's a pretty good tripping hazard. So I'm going to get rid of that mullion and then I have a door. If I wanted to add additional um, mullions to that, I can, or grids that will have mullions. So if I have, maybe there is a mullion here on either side of the door. Just lost my command thanks to the reboot. It is by default going to go all the way across, and you can see it made 2 doors. So you do have to modify this, and you're gonna unpin it and delete the mullion. And then I'm gonna remove that portion of the grid. So I'm gonna select the grid, hit add or remove, and then remove that portion of the grid. All right, so the grid is still all the way across. It's just only applied here and here. Right, let's go ahead. I'm gonna put a floor on this. And then we can also take a look at a couple more ways to use this storefront tool. Okay, so if I had let's use this as if we have a door and a side light for like an interior office. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna use my storefront 2 that doesn't have any preset grids so that I can work with what's going on there. Let's say maybe we have 5 foot here. And then I go back to my architecture tab. Oops, can look at it in 3D. It's just one panel right now. I'm gonna knock it down to 8 feet again. I'm going to go ahead and add a grid. I can add a grid here in 3D or I can do it in my level 1. And then I'm going to select that wall panel and pin it and then switch it to a door. Want to make sure I get rid of that mullion tripping hazard. Definitely not to code with that in there. And then I can modify too in plan, you know, the swing of the door here. And that's it here. If I want to control the size of my my door, I can do that. Make sure it's a typical size. If it was going to be like 3 feet, because 3'2", that's not a typical door size at all. To do that though, I need to make sure I select the grid. Okay, not because you're measuring to the inside of each mullion, so you can't just click on this and move it over. We're gonna need to actually select that grid and use the move command and do a little bit of math here to get it to that clean 3-foot door. All right, now let's take a look as if we were going to use it for an interior demountable partition. I'm just gonna go across the room there. It's still going to be at that unconnected 20. I'm just going to go ahead and put this one up to level 2 as if it was the entire wall here. And then I can go ahead and add in grids. Again, you can do that in floor plan or 3D. Also, if you start in the middle like that, Revit kind of helps you default to equals in between the panel sizes. All right, so now I have my vertical grids. Let's take a look at 3D. I could also do an elevation to add grids, or I can just work in 3D here. I'm gonna do a curtain grid. Let's again go, I'll start in the center. All right, so it might be very clean and systematic like this, or you might have kind of an every other. So you can select these grids and modify, make them custom for what you want for your panel system. So I'll just do that, and then you can create different types of panels. Right now we just have the glazed and the solid, but if you wanted to make more than that, then you can just go in here and then you would go assign a new material to that. And you could also make your own custom material, like a translucent panel, and bring that in. I'll just switch it to copper so we can see a different color here. And then once that is created, you can switch that out for making sure it's unpinned so you can edit it. Then that new panel type's in there, and you can switch it out for as many panels as are going to be that type. All right, from here, to create views that have each one of these separate to put on sheets, I'm gonna go ahead and hide the levels in this view. They make it pretty a much bigger view than I need it to be. But similar to the tables, if I duplicate the view and then duplicate the view, and then I can hide these items in one view, and then these others in the other view. So now I would then have, gonna close all these other views, two separate views, one showing one building, one showing the other, and then when you pull them onto a sheet, they will have their own view title. Just kind of, yeah, and there you go.